and welcome to this week's episode of The Action Effect, where we talk to people who built real success the hard way. No shortcuts, no hustle, just genuine graft. And today I'm joined by Adele Lear, a personal branding expert, behavioural profiler and NLP master practitioner who has spent years helping freelancers, founders and leaders understand their zone of genius and turn that into a powerful personal brand. Now, in this episode, we talk about why your marketing as a freelancer doesn't actually start with your LinkedIn posts or updating your profile. It starts with understanding your why and what makes you different and how to communicate that in a way that attracts the right kind of opportunities for you. So if you've ever struggled with marketing yourself or explaining what makes you valuable, this conversation will give you plenty to think about. So let's get into it. Hello, Adele. Thank you so much for joining me. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
No, so am I. Because as we were chatting before, I did a poll on LinkedIn to ask freelancers what they struggle with the most, especially when they go a freelance in the early stages, and actually when they start to lose the love for freelancing a bit. How do they reignite their passion? And the number one thing they said was their own personal marketing. So insert stage left you, who knows a little bit about that. So if you want to introduce yourself, what you do, and then we'll give freelancers some stuff to take away to help with their personal marketing.
Yes, super. It's quite interesting because you said reignite, and the program that I work with a lot of freelancers that are there or freelancers that are starting is actually called Ignite.
Oh, is it?
Yes. it's time to shine, because it is very much, the work I do is really helping people understand who they are above and beyond the job title. And I mean, you've talked a lot about job titles, to really kind of get to the crux of what's the service they deliver. Who do they deliver it to? What makes them amazing at delivering it, unique at delivering it, and package that up and put their personal brand out there to attract potential clients and businesses. Some people, depending on where they are in their freelance journey, might be then looking at turning themselves more into, how do I perhaps partner with others and build more of a studio? But it's really about that personal brand packaging wherever you are in that freelance stage. And then my love, which goes back a number of years from when it first started, is LinkedIn, and actually teaching people how to bring their personal brand to life on LinkedIn, and how to leverage LinkedIn to really get out there and build their reputation, build their network, to build their client base and land the kind of clients and kind of work that they want. So not in a nutshell, bit of a long-winded way of telling you what I do.
No, that's good. And I think it ties in really nicely, because so much of the narrative we see around marketing for freelancers is mega overwhelming and very vague. So it's just, you are marketeers, so you should know how to market yourself type of thing. But actually, when you come to do it for yourself, it can feel quite different. So what I really would love to get out today is to strip back some of that overwhelm, give people some practical steps they can take away with an action, and just get that ball rolling and get stuff out there, and, get rid of analysis by paralysis, and all of that. Done is better than perfect, all of those lovely sayings. So it'd be great for you to tell me about some of the trends that you see with freelancers where they're maybe not hitting the mark with their personal marketing, so we can start there.
So, and it's interesting because I specialize in the creative marketing advertising space, and work with amazing people that do it for brands and businesses. It is not super easy to do it for yourself. So I think first of all, understand that. So you're not coming into this beating yourself up that, why can't I do it? And a way around this, when you kind of start thinking about it, is actually to think about yourself as a product or a service, and take the personal aspect out of it and bring that in a little bit later on. Where I see, I think the couple of really big mistakes that I see is putting out there freelance, insert job title, and nothing else. Being at a networking event, being, wherever, a coffee shop, what do you do? Oh, I'm at freelance designer, I'm a freelance
Yeah.
marketeer. And just really using only the job title to describe yourself, because you are so much more than that. That's one of the kind of big things. And really, I think talking when you're kind of building your bio, and whether it's for a website, whether it's for your LinkedIn, whether it's for a pitch, is doing the cookie cutter CV talk. And we have to kind of step away from that CV talk, and really think about, right, what's this service? What's this product? What's the problems I'm solving? Who am I solving it for? And come at it with that angle, and
Yeah.
kind of have that bigger picture vision of where you want to take your freelance work. I just think we get hung up on job titles, and we get hung up on CV talk, and
Yeah.
it really dulls down any of the magic that you're bringing to the table.
Yeah, I agree. I love that. And something we spoke about before we actually started recording on our other call was productizing yourself and taking away that personal element, because it's very easy to take stuff personally as a freelancer, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny because it's called personal brand, and it is your personal brand. And there
Yeah.
needs to be elements of your personality in there, but it's how does that fit and connect with the bigger story and the bigger
Yeah.
picture that you're painting, and actually really owning your quirks and your idiosyncrasies and your
Yeah.
uniqueness, because that's what attracts the right clients and the
Yeah.
right pieces of business and projects for you.
Definitely. And I think that leads really nicely into what we've discussed previously as well, is highlighting those nuances within you. So even if they don't become your be all and end all for your freelance career forever, what a lot of freelancers I talk to struggle with is knowing where to start with which clients to even try and outreach to or tap into. So going back right to the start of what can you tap into that you've already done that relates to a specific nuance or a sector or a project type or whatever it might be. You don't have to have a real passion for it at the start, but at least if you can pull out some of those nuances, then that can be the foundation of your entire personal branding in the kind of
Yeah.
start, can't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just finding, I call it the golden thread,
Yes, yes, you said that last time. I love it.
which we spoke
Yeah,
about. And it's, if whether you're already in a freelance business, whether you're thinking to leave your full-time role and set up a freelance business, wherever you are, needs to be around what you really enjoy doing and who
yeah,
you really enjoy doing it with.
yeah,
Um, just the same as if you are in a permanent role and you're looking to grow or move on to the next role. It's not about everything you can do. And
yeah,
again, I think this is one of the mistakes that I've seen people, and when I've worked with people, we've actually taken trying to do everything and really get a niche and really kind
yeah,
of package up that niche that you become known for
yeah,
doing that really, really well, versus trying to do everything for everybody.
yeah,
And it's the same when I work with people that are looking to grow and up level their career in a employment role. It's really scary to kind of go, oh, I'm going to niche down, because you feel you're going to cut out potential clients, potential job opportunities, potential projects. It doesn't mean you're going to cut them out and they're not going
yeah,
to come to you, but you're just going to get known for what you're really great at. And again, if you're building a business, freelance business or a kind of agency business, you want to make sure you're doing the work that you love
yeah, 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 yeah.
as
No, I agree.
much as possible. 100% isn't always realistic, but if you
Yeah,
can try and get 70 to 80%. So really kind of going through your past experience, your skills, your strengths, down to, clients that you really liked working with, the kind of people you really like working with, and really just kind of pulling that apart. You'll start seeing that picture and that golden thread that you can then
yeah,
pull through. That then is where you kind of build your personal brand, your bio and your story from.
yeah. No, I like that, and I think there's so much stuff you can do before you even go on to LinkedIn to establish that golden thread. Like, don't just open your profile and go, oh my god, where do I start? Like, just take out a notepad and a pen. Like,
Yeah.
just start simple as that.
Well, when I'm working with people, we start with writing a storybook.
Do you? Okay.
Yeah, and really, it's not looking at a LinkedIn profile or a,
Yeah.
CV. Our brain goes into this awful robotic, like cookie cutter talk when we go into that,
Yeah.
versus let's pull out, tell me about projects that you really enjoyed working on. What are the big results you've had? Tell me about projects you didn't like working on, because
Yeah.
often we're wired to the negative, so we can kind of find
Yeah.
those. Looking at brands that you like, businesses that you like, sectors you like, and really just kind of dumping all this information and start building a story from that. Also, one of the things that I think is missed a lot is the market research.
Okay, let's go into that a bit more.
So, and I love this, I think, because I'm really nosy. Um, I call it mapping the market.
Yeah.
So, knowing who's out there, if you can find the person that's got the job that you want, or the freelance career or agency career you want 2, 3, 5 years from now, that is absolute gold, because there's no such thing as a new idea. It's kind of your
Yeah.
spin on what's already out there. These people have paved the way.
Yeah.
It's amazing when you find those people. Actually, if you go and talk to them, a number of these people are really happy to help.
Yeah.
When you're mapping the market, not only do you see your competitors, you see potential clients, you also see potential partners. And this is a massive missed piece of work,
Yeah.
that we think, I'm going freelance, that means I'm going solo. But you can actually feed really easily off each other. If you're if you're a great copywriter, you maybe got someone who's really good on the marketing strategy, and they're busy with the marketing strategy, they haven't got time for the copy. You're
Yeah.
working with a client, they want the copy, but as you get kind of involved in it, you realize actually they haven't got the bigger marketing strategy. It's
Yeah. Yeah.
not
Yeah.
your forte. So team up. So there's lots of ways that you can cross promote, cross pitch, and just kind of, support and help, help service each other from a
Yeah.
partnership point of view. So that mapping the market is, and LinkedIn, it's the who's who of who's out there.
It is. For its faults, it's still brilliant.
Yes, yeah. So, and obviously you've got other ways that you can find out who's out there, but it's just really good to get a lay of the land and the
Yeah.
kind of state of play of where you're going to pitch and position yourself before any of that kind of marketing. And again, I think because we're thinking about it from I need clients, I need a job, I need freelance work, we actually forget some of those fundamental kind of branding, marketing, product building
Yeah.
kind of exercises, like the research.
Definitely. And I think that ties into one of the series that we have on the action effect is called Start Before You're Ready. So that kind of stuff you can be doing any day, every day on an evening, and just
Yeah,
as opposed to being in the weeds of LinkedIn, step back a little bit and become an observer.
yeah,
So why have you stopped on someone's profile, or why have you engaged with their content? What is it that made you think, oh, that's cool, or that's not good, or whatever it is, and try and critique the market as you're researching it, so that when you come to deploy your own strategy, you've had that observation.
yeah. Absolutely. I mean, I think you should, just generally be keeping the eye on the market anyway.
Yeah,
It's not just about when you're looking for your next client, when you're looking
I agree.
for work. It's really just seeing, what are the trends, what are people posting, what are people talking about,
Yeah,
how's the market moving. You then get to join in on those conversations, and that's, once you've got your brand, ready to go live, and your
yeah,
profile and your pitch ready, it is then stepping into those conversations. And this doesn't need to be a posting content 5 days a week exercise. This is just liking, commenting, following the right people. So you've got that information, and you've got that knowledge, and you
yeah.
start building your brand and your network off the back of that.
Yeah, I found that so helpful to adopt the observer mindset. And I can't remember what I heard it on, but it's one of those things where when you think about it, it's so obvious,
Yeah,
but you just don't think to do it yourself until someone says, well, become the observer as opposed to the participant.
yeah,
And it just helps you think about it as again, productize yourself as opposed to the personal element.
yeah. And I think now with platforms, LinkedIn, Instagrams, your TikToks, often we are thinking if we're building a business, we need to be in there as the doer, not the observer. And so, I think this is why then people go, oh, I haven't got time for it. This is literally, when I'm working with clients, I actually call it the LinkedIn gym. This is getting in the
Right.
LinkedIn gym, like
Yeah.
10, 20 minutes a day, just to see what's going on, just to notice who's doing what, the trends, the movements, just to, interact a little bit. This isn't about posting content, just some interaction. So you're at least in the room.
Yes. Yeah.
Versus you've got the door closed and you've walked out the building. You're not gonna
Yeah.
you're not gonna know anything that's happening. But I don't think you need to be doing all the time. I think that just kind of snooping about with curiosity.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's I think you touched on it as well earlier on, is that that's not just for freelancers. If you're looking to climb the corporate career or go up the ladder of where you're at, you still need, it's quite easy to become lazy with LinkedIn if you're employed, because you think, well, I've got my job, it doesn't really matter. And then I'll update it when I need another job, and I'll update it but even if you're corporate, you should be doing exactly this, being the observer.
Yeah, absolutely. And, for anywhere in your kind of career journey, you start seeing who the movers and shakers are in your industry and in your space that you need to know. Then when you are at a networking event, when you are talking to more senior people in the business, when you're at, client site on a freelance project, you've got that knowledge. So this is where that, there is some name dropping, there is some information sharing, because then you're positioning yourself as someone who has the knowledge, who has the understanding, who has the finger on the pulse. And this is the difference longer term with your brand, for being known as, John came and did some design work. Yeah, it was good. Versus John, book of knowledge. Really interesting to hear how he's, understands X, Y, and Z, shared this great piece of information with me and gave me somebody amazing to follow on LinkedIn or on, another social channel. That's the difference when you kind of, really up leveling your brand, and it's thinking about how do you want to be known above and beyond just the, the level of work that you're doing. It's that bigger kind of picture. It's your reputation.
Yeah, 100%. 100. And I think what you said about the partnerships is really interesting as well, because whenever we're looking for new freelancers for interim, a big part is looking at the cultural fit. And are they using positive language, and how are they presenting themselves in the kind of the ecosystem of LinkedIn? And if you're looking from a freelancer perspective for partnerships, just highlighting people you think, oh, they use similar language to me. Or from a mindset perspective, I like how they're tuned in. Because if you can establish that from an online perspective, the chances are when you actually connect, you're going to have something in common. Even if nothing comes of it for 5 years, you've still made that initial connection. And it's still, even if you're chatting to other freelancers, that's still networking. Like, you don't have to be talking to other potential businesses as networking. So I think breaking down that barrier of what we think networking is as well.
Oh, yeah. So I run with a client that I do some work with, I run this career sprint session, and we do a lot around networking. And we're trying to think of another name, because networking has these really icky connotations. This cheesy event, and you've got to have a very firm handshake and, wear corporate clothes and stuff. Networking is just communicating. And you're networking when you're talking to someone in the coffee shop. You're networking, all the time, be it at the school gate or wherever. So it's really knowing your pitch, your value proposition for any of those, not just with, your corporate in-person networking events or networking with a potential client on LinkedIn. And I think, this brings in the point of your brand is this, all your touch points. So if you're at the school gate and maybe you haven't had a great week with picking up the freelance gigs, you don't know who you're talking to necessarily. It's about, right, how do I want to present and pitch myself? If you're on LinkedIn, and yes, you might have had a really icky week, but it's not kind of sounding off about that, because that's then the message that your brand is giving. And I think,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know, a
yeah.
great way is if you're networking in those partnerships with other freelancers that are offering the same or similar or, you know, related services, is then do a post. It's been great to connect with a number of other freelancers this week.
Yeah.
Tag everyone. This is what we've learned from each other,
Yeah.
is a way to brand build, you know, and help all of you in a really positive way, versus what can be happening a lot is the, you know, all the negative talk,
Yeah.
versus kind of what you're learning from your, you know, from your freelance or your career journey.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, don't get me wrong, we all, and you and I know very well, as we're both self-employed and we've been corporate, you have challenges. You know, you don't go self-employed because it's easy. Equally, you don't create or carve out an ambitious career path in corporate if you want it to be easy. You know, all of this stuff is meant to be hard, but using language in a environment of potential clients and potential peers where it's very negative and it's very, the market's horrendous and isn't it dreadful, blah, blah, just there's a way of saying things. You know, it's, you can come and say, look, I've had an absolute challenge of a week, but here are 3 things that I've done to try and overcome these challenges, or put it to the audience, you know, and say, look, I've had a nightmarish of a time with this. I've never come across it before. Has anyone got any tips and tricks to
Yeah,
navigate a
yeah.
challenge like this? And engage with the community. Don't just come out, you know, bull in a china shop and freelancing's horrendous and I never want to do this again and my clients are awful.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And listen, you know, it's a roller coaster ride, I think.
Yeah.
And it's a roller coaster ride, even in corporate.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. 100%.
And this is why I think it is really, really important to look at getting the 70 to 80% of your role doing what you love to do.
Yeah.
Because it's a roller coaster ride. Let's enjoy at least 70, 80%. Because if
Yeah.
you've got, you know, and I work with a lot of people that are coming to me maybe to start freelance because they have been in a you know, a permanent role that they really don't like. And
Yeah.
it's like, oh, well, freelance is going to be the answer. Well, if you're still working on those projects and doing that work that's not, you know, correctly aligned to your
Yeah.
strengths, you're still going to have the same problems. It's just packaged up differently.
Yeah. And you're adding the layer of having to get all your own work, do
Yeah.
your all invoicing, all of this.
Yeah.
Freelancing is not the answer for a lot of people.
No. So I think, you know, the starting point and where, you know, I really start with clients, it's clarity.
Yes.
And it's
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
going really, really deep. And this isn't just like, oh, I want a permanent job paying X figures, or I want to do freelance, you know, doing this. It's really getting clear on, you know, who you are, your strengths. The
Yeah.
strengths are a massive, massive indication of where to direct your career. Because when you're working aligned to your strengths,
Yeah.
it's what's naturally innate to you.
Yeah.
And there's a little, and values come into this as well,
Yeah.
massively. And constantly kind of, you know, I'd say every 12 months, 12, 18 months, really looking and doing a strengths, skills and values kind of stock take. A lot
Yeah.
of our core ones are going to stay the same, but the level in which they kind of, you know, come into play can change. But, you know, really getting clear on all those and then using that as your building blocks.
Yeah.
Things, you know, I love all my client facing work. I ended up and where I kind of really started understanding strengths, I ended up in a permanent role that the sales cycle was very slow. We're talking 10 to 12 months sales cycle with a really small client pool. Well, and it didn't work for me. And then I was like, well, hang on, I like variety and I like fast paced. So
Yeah.
even though it's got that element of people contact, it wasn't the right level and the right style and the right speed. So again, you know, take a copywriter, for example. There's so many different types and styles of copy you could be writing, really getting clear on what's, you know, what's the right style, what's the right type, what are the right clients, what's the speed in which you want to be working on projects. If you love that kind of short, sharp copy, don't take a load of long copy jobs because it's not going to make you
Yeah.
happy.
Yeah. 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 No, I agree. And I think once you start to carve that side of it, I mean, in the beginning, you're going to say yes to pretty much everything just to get the ball
Yeah.
rolling, but you can still be crafting that kind of messaging alongside it. And I think once you get to the point of knowing what you like and you don't like, and you begin talking about that online, passion just comes out so
Yeah.
much more clearly on people's LinkedIns when they genuinely care about what they're doing.
Yeah. And I'd say in those early days, and I certainly know for me when I set up my business, there was kind of quite fast, like chunks of evolution in a sense.
Yeah,
Websites changed within
yeah,
6-12 months. My bio, my kind of personal brand overview on LinkedIn changed, every 6 to 12 months.
yeah,
Because initially I was trying to catch lots of things because I needed I was setting up on my own, needed the money. And then I was like, actually,
yeah,
I don't really like that. So I'm going to
yeah,
steer things more into this area. So I need to change my copy. I need to change my messaging. I need to change my positioning to kind of meet that. So again, I think, it's not thinking that this is set and forget, particularly in the early
yes,
days. You're probably going
yeah,
to be every 6 months, you want to go, right, what's the work I've done? What did I enjoy doing? What do I want to do more of? What didn't I enjoy doing and I want to drop? How do I kind of tweak my brand and my positioning and my messaging? And, if you're doing outreach, how do I tweak everything to get more of that stuff that I like? Do it
yeah,
again 6 months' time. And I think, if you can do that 6 to 12 months, you're more likely within 2 years to really have a business that's focused on what you absolutely love to do. Versus not
yeah.
doing it, you're still going to be getting bits of everything and not kind of moving it in the right direction.
Definitely. And I think that's one of the biggest blessings of freelance and working for yourself is how dynamic you can be with that
Yeah,
stuff. And I'm a huge advocate. I don't know if this maybe says more about me or not, but I'm a huge advocate for working with the types of clients that you actually don't want, no one else wants to work with at the start. Because you might find that, there's some people who really don't like working with entrepreneurs because they're really like fast paced and can't make a decision, or they're just, they feel like chaos. I love working with those kind of people. Some people struggle with slow, considered, and I struggle working with those kind of people. So at the start, you kind of, when it's just you and you're not part of a client services team, or you haven't got the nest egg of an agency or a corporate behind you, test everyone,
yeah,
because it's going to be you with that one-on-one relationship. And then it's not just about you carving a niche with your discipline or your channel or your discipline specialism, however you want to term it. It's carving a niche with the types of clients that you really
yeah,
enjoy working with.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I think a kind of way to look at that is to take a step back and be the observer of yourself.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, yeah,
How am I? Am I fast paced? Am I structured? Am I um am I a bit kind of, all over the place? Or am I,
yeah,
how are you in terms of your personality and working style?
yeah,
And then you can start thinking, right, well, who would that work best with? So
yeah.
I, think I'm similar to you from what you said. And so the girl that helps me with my marketing, she's really structured and she's
Yeah,
great at taking all my, kind of random ideas and
yeah,
bringing them together.
yeah,
And that's one of her strengths.
yes, yeah, yeah, yeah,
And then that is when we start looking at that brand positioning. That's part of your uniqueness. And that goes
yeah,
in your messaging. I'm great at working with all the people with the big, crazy ideas and
yeah,
bringing it into a succinct way to make it happen.
yeah,
Then you're talking to your clients, your ideal
yeah.
clients.
Exactly, exactly. And I think when people think, "Oh, I don't know what to do with my own marketing," you automatically think like deliverables, like you were saying, the doing. But actually, a massive part of it is self-awareness. Like your own marketing will be better if you have better self-awareness.
Yeah.
Like, is the stuff I'm posting on LinkedIn already, is it a bit boring, or is it a bit negative? Is it this? And we often say we need to be really kind to ourselves. That's fine, but there's also an appropriate time to give yourself a kick up
Yeah. Be
the
real.
jackson. Yeah, be real and go, what am I doing? Like, who am I, and who am I great with, who am I not great with? How am I coming across already? And having a real critique of yourself. Because even if you're doing stuff and you haven't done that self-awareness piece, it's never going to come across as passionate or knowledgeable, because you're just putting stuff out without doing the behind the scenes work.
Yeah. Well, absolutely. It starts, it all starts at home, really. And I think
Yeah.
on that, we can't do chat without mentioning the AI. On
Yeah.
on that, I think nowadays more and more people are just plugging it in to,
Mm,
insert AI tool of choice and
yeah.
letting that spit out a, a brand for them.
Yeah.
And it's surface level, and actually what's
Yeah.
really connecting is this authenticity, it is this human
Yeah.
to human connection, it is those, it's the little bits of you that you probably want to hide away from. It's actually
Yeah.
putting those out there is what's going to connect. And to
Yeah.
do that, you need to do that inner work. You need to do that
Yeah.
really deep dive clarity piece to know. So if you then are going to plug it into, an AI tool, you've got the depth of the understanding for it to work with,
Yes.
versus I'm a copywriter, I'm great at writing copy for ABC, want to do XYZ,
Yeah.
give me a brand.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I think it is really looking, kind of looking at yourself. One of the things that I say to people to do, phone a friend.
Yeah. Nice. I like that.
Phone a
Yeah.
friend. What 3 words that you would use to describe me? I've
Yeah.
just been listening to an amazing podcast on energies and frequencies. What's the frequency you
Ooh.
think I give off?
Nice. Okay.
Um, it's that chemistry piece. I mean, that's why we
Yeah.
connect with people when we have that chemistry. And so if we
Yeah.
can get more of that chemistry into our brand,
Yeah.
we're going to connect with people.
Yeah.
Past people you've worked with. What was great
Yeah.
about working with me? What wasn't so great?
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So we can
And then yeah.
see the sides of ourselves from different people.
Yeah.
Again, just having that, the more knowledge we've got about ourselves, I think the better to then start, having that information to play with.
Yeah, definitely. And I think as well, if you've got really good friends who are happy to be candid, that's really helpful. Like I'm really lucky that a lot of my friends are from my agency days, and one of them's head of PR, and she'll tell me straight if
Yeah.
my stuff's absolutely awful. And you need that
Yeah.
sometimes. You
Yeah.
need it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is where, when you are stepping out into, freelance, which is really setting up your own business, it's
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
having some accountability buddies
Yes, definitely,
that you
definitely.
can, you can phone up and go, I want to put this post out, or I'm thinking about doing this. Like it's a sounding board. But
Yeah.
someone that is going to be honest and not just blow smoke.
Yeah. Yeah. It's true though. You kind of need that. You really do need that.
yeah, because there are going to be times when you question yourself,
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
and it's sometimes easy to get dragged into what the stream of people are doing,
Yeah.
and you lose yourself in that.
Yeah.
So I think when you've got that accountability buddy, and also it's sometimes just stepping back and going, if everyone's zigging, I need to zag.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Like that. I like that.
Which,
Yeah.
I think some of us do want. It's easy to go, well, everyone's doing that, I'm just going to do it.
Yeah,
But actually, when you want to stand out, it's doing the opposite of what the crowd's doing.
definitely. And I love the point you made a bit earlier on about if you spot anyone who's a few steps ahead of you to kind of contact them. Because when I first transitioned from freelance to interim and kind of really started thinking about kind of doing that switch, I reached out to a couple of people who I've properly fangirl, in our kind of industry, and the kindness that I was met with was phenomenal,
Yeah,
and the value that I got from those half an hours with those people who have already done what I'm trying to achieve, are further ahead in the game, and are equally so candid. Like
yeah,
I'd say stuff like, "I think I really need X and Y." It's like, oh God. So I'd go into those conversations thinking I needed so much stuff and come out of them completely
yeah,
180 on
yeah.
so much stuff, but with really fired up, really good plans and actions to take away. And they properly, fill you with that fire to go off and do stuff.
Absolutely. And I think we often forget that there's a lot of kindness and care, particularly in
Yeah.
the, in all communities. Obviously, you and I know the kind of creative community,
Yeah.
the best. There's not competition from everyone. People
No.
really are wanting to promote and build the industry from all levels.
Yeah.
How me and you were connected was me reaching out to Chris, who
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was following his stuff, and I'm like, he's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Want
Yeah.
to know
Yeah.
how he's doing it,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
started following and connected with him.
Yeah.
Has been, I think, both of us can kind of say, really
Yeah.
supportive,
Yeah.
a really
100%.
good networker. So again, that partnership
Yeah.
and connecting with people, it's not about business.
No.
The
No.
business comes off the back of making really good connections.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, I don't know if you found this, but I find, having come from sales teams as well, agency side, that's a really tricky mindset shift to make, because when you're a BDM and every month you've got targets over your head and every month you're missing them and you've got an empty board and your pipeline's dry as the Sahara, you can't help but be like, oh God, I
I
need to
know.
try and this, something has to come from these conversations. Something has to come. But then when it's yours, it's different.
Yeah.
So
Well,
let those kind of guards down and just chat, as
yeah.
opposed to think about your board.
I was in recruitment, so listen,
Yeah.
I know very well those
Yeah, yeah,
cold
yeah,
calls. I then led a recruitment team, and I actually said, "Don't chase the money.
yeah.
Chase being the best version of yourself,
Yeah, yeah.
making really good connections, and delivering a great service, and the money will follow."
Yeah.
If you're
Which is
going,
hard.
it isn't easy. It isn't easy, but just going into those calls with the intention, and this is where you need to be doing it consistently, not the minute you need a deal or you need a new project or you need a freelance gig, because then desperation kicks in and it repels versus attracts. And this is where that energies and those frequencies again come in. Whereas if it's just, I'm going to constantly be curious and create connections and conversations with people because I can and because I want to, you're more naturally building a brand versus it's like, shit, I've got to get on LinkedIn and connect with loads of people because that client's just dropped me and I've got no money. And it's, people can smell it a mile off, so just think, right, I'm going to constantly be curious, be connecting, be having conversations, and I think that's when you come out as the best version versus that chasing the dollar. You're on mute. You're on mute.
Of course I am. Yeah, an old CEO of mine used to say, they can smell your desperation.
Yeah.
Prospects can smell your desperation. And that's really hard. And I think what you've said there about the consistently curious, that leads really nicely on to the point that we've been talking about, that I think freelancing in 2025 and why you see so much of the narrative of the market being hard now is that it has evolved significantly. And to succeed, you have to be more visible. It's just as simple as that. And if you're not going to be consistently visible, then you will find it harder. I think that's fair to say.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, to kind of counter that, if you're not used to being consistently visible and you do just go, oh my God, I've got no work this month, so I need to go find some, as opposed to, right, every day I'm going to start with 15 minutes a day. That's all. It's 15 minutes a day, one cold outreach message, 2 or 3 comments on someone else's LinkedIn post. Start really, really small, because the compounding knock-on effect of that, after a month, you've done 20 outreach emails
I
and you've
know.
done, however many,
Yeah.
60 comments on someone's post or whatever the maths is. But it doesn't have to be these massive overhauls of, strategy. It's just a start small and consistent, 1% every day.
Yeah, absolutely. So if I could leave people with kind of a few things just to really help. So first of all, go beyond your job title.
Yes, love that.
Go massively beyond your job title. Who am I? What do I deliver? What makes me great? What's the value that I'm bringing with the work that I do? Find a little quirky bit of uniqueness. Make sure that's kind of pulled out, because that's going to resonate with the right people. Make sure your LinkedIn profile, it's your calling card. It's the first thing that people are seeing. If people are Googling your name, or even if they're just generally Googling your service, LinkedIn's there. It's a search engine. So make sure you've got the keywords in there. Make sure you've got a profile that sells you, is not got 25 years demonstrated history in X. None of that talk doesn't resonate. Make it really personal. Then 10 minutes a day in the LinkedIn gym. 10, 15 minutes a day in the LinkedIn gym. It is commenting, liking, connecting. Follow the brands that you want to work with, the businesses you want to work with. Don't go and ask for work. Just go and get curious about their business, their current challenges, their growth, what they're looking to do. Just generally network, and then work will start coming to you, particularly if you kind of, you're standing out with your messaging and your brand. And you don't have to. Great if you can post. If you're in that marketing, copy, design space, the more you can showcase your work, the better. But you don't have to be doing 5 days a week. You don't even have to be doing 3 days a week. But you do have to be active on there in some way, shape, or form, and really, try and think about having a small channel where you get to showcase your skills and your services.
And it's better to do 2 days a week consistently for 6 months than hammer it every day for 2 weeks and then burn yourself out and have no idea what to say and all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. But I do think that kind of visibility and just being real, I think we're all kind of craving that human connection in this world at the moment. So just being real, I think really, really, really stands out.
I think we're all a bit broed and AI'd out, aren't we? It's nice to get some form of authenticity on LinkedIn, even if you have to go looking for it.
Yeah, absolutely. But hopefully that kind of helps helps people if they're wanting to to build or grow, but also not be thinking about all this as an afterthought, like you said. Be doing it way before you kind of need to.
Don't just log into LinkedIn and think, what do I do? This is a pen, paper, self-reflection, self-awareness piece before you even post on LinkedIn. There's a heck of a lot of groundwork you can be doing.
And if you're stepping away from a corporate role into a freelance role, be doing this groundwork. We're in September. If you're thinking, right, 2026, this work needs to be getting done now. It's not the minute you hand in your notice that you're doing it.
And think, oh God, what now?
You can be doing a lot of this now. I'm really kind of planning now. I think, and I'm very good at saying this. I have put my hands up, not always good at doing it, but planning now for first quarter in 2026, really kind of being, planning a quarter ahead of where you need to be. But I know it's sometimes easier said than done.
But and then also the final thing, which I love, which you say, is that golden thread. And all of this will help you find your golden thread eventually.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And it just keeps, it keeps on going. Once you find it, that kind of, leads you to the next pot of gold and the next pot of gold. So definitely worth doing that kind of clarity piece and that digging to find that.
And not being afraid of it changing along the way.
No, absolutely not, because we change.
Of course we do.
And the market changes, the industry changes. So it is about that. I like to kind of think of things as that constant evolution, both from my personal development, my business, right, where next? What does next year look like? What do I enjoy doing? What's going to change?
Excellent. And what I've loved about our catch up has been how the practical steps that you've helped with aren't just that classic practical step of post 3 times a week and create your content pillars. As I said, there's practical steps you can do within yourself first, and that will give you the difference between authenticity and posting for the sake of posting.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know there's, there is a lot of talk about, the content you need to post, but if you haven't got your foundations right,
Agreed.
It's not going to work. I will just shamelessly plug a freebie.
Oh, please do. I was just about to. Yeah,
that I have. I've got a 5-day little mini course on how to kind of polish and up level your LinkedIn profile.
Amazing.
So if people are kind of wondering, what do I do? What do I need to get on there? That kind of takes people through the steps in 15 minutes over 5 days. So very, very manageable. So yeah, we'll drop the link in so people can get that.
100%, because I think that's great. So thank you so much for putting a different spin on what you can do for personal marketing as opposed to the classic gump. So it's been a real pleasure to talk to you, and I'm sure so many people will find this mega helpful. So thank you very much.
Cool. Thank you for having me. Lovely to chat.
No worries. Thanks, Adele. Cheers.
Bye.